Hey, what's up 360 and welcome back. Hope you had a great Mother's Day last week, celebrating with your mom. We're back for our second part in our series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. Okay, so how many of you overuse emojis when you text, right? Guilty as charged. I get it, we all have that friend who somehow feels like no text is complete without 6 emojis, or maybe they've moved on to GIFs and memes and now they only send 2-second clips of Beyonce instead of actually communicating. When it comes to text, sometimes too much is too much, but at the same time, I've got to be honest. Emojis and GIFs have helped me out a bunch of times. Now here's what I mean. The laughing tear face, okay? I use this one all the time. Sometimes I mix it up and use the laughing tear waterfalls. Emojis sound kind of weird when you try to describe them using words, but I'll do my best. When my friends and I are sending each other stupid memes, a lot of laughing tear faces are usually sent in response. They're also sent when I have no idea what else to say. Okay, anybody else do that? The shaka symbol is the go-to when everything is solid, right? Complete agreement. If something is awesome, it may be followed by thunderbolts and fire, and when it's ×3, it means it's even more awesome. If it's more like a chill awesome, it might be palm trees and maybe like a wave. Now, a sad face with a single tear. Whether I'm sad about something that's for real, or if it's just something that's heavy, or I just discover I'm bummed because we're in a lockdown. The sad face is the go-to. But that's the beauty of emojis. They help us talk about how we feel without actually having to use words. Now, there are a few emojis that I don't use super often, but when I do, they say a lot. And these set the stage for what we're talking about today. It's these emojis. The face with no mouth, the face with open mouth, and a face with an open mouth and raised eyebrows. We've all had those situations where we're like, hey, I have no words for this. We're shocked. Now, I like the first one the best, the face without the mouth, because it represents those moments when you're speechless. You simply don't have any words to say. It's when we hear about something or something happens and we just can't make sense of it. Have you ever been in one of those moments? I'd venture to say that most of the time, these shock emojis are sent along with a text that reports something happening that was shocking in a bad way. Something that usually catches us off guard and hits us out of nowhere. Now, that, my friends, is what we're talking about today. Now, have you ever experienced anything in your life like that? Something that simply rocked your world, caught you off guard, made your life feel uncertain, or caused you a lot of hurt. Maybe you felt this way when you got the news that your parents were splitting up, even though you had no idea that things were that bad. Maybe a friend had something horrible to say about you, and he or she accidentally sent that text to you, and immediately you knew that text wasn't meant for you. It was meant to be sent to somebody else. Maybe you felt this way when your mom or dad told your family that you're going to have to move because of a job change. Or maybe you felt this way when you experienced an injury at the beginning of your sports season. I know it's happened to some of you. Maybe you got dumped, or maybe you went to break up with somebody and they said that they were relieved. And you were like, wait, what? Or maybe you got a rejection letter from a college that you were dreaming of attending, or you got a test score that may make getting into college way harder than you thought. Or maybe it was when you realized that you're going to be locked down for the rest of the school year. And your graduation ceremony got canceled, and now your plans have changed and you got to do like a drive-by graduation, which just isn't the same. Unfortunately, this list could go on for a long time with examples of times when your world got rocked by some shocking news or circumstances. Now, if you haven't experienced that yet, I guarantee there will be a time in your life when this happens. Now, the thing about these shockingly painful moments is that they often hit us out of nowhere. And because of that, it's difficult for us to know how they're going to make us feel. And because of that, it's difficult for us to know how we will respond. Now, sometimes we surprise ourselves by how well we handle it. We think, wow, I figured that news like that would make me or take me to the edge. But actually, I'm doing quite okay. Or sometimes we surprise ourselves by how much it actually tears us apart. We think, man, I don't even know why I'm so upset about this, but I'm a mess. Sometimes we feel closer to God when stuff rocks us, but other times we wonder where God is at all. Now, because we're all wired differently, we all experience hurt differently. But that doesn't change the fact that hurt actually hurts. And when life hurts, we all find ourselves wondering what to do next. That's why we're doing this series, right? What to do when you don't know what to do. Because we all encounter those no-word emoji moments, and so did Joseph. We began this series by talking about him 2 weeks ago, and this week his story continues in a way that can only be described as the face with a straight mouth. Joseph is one of the most famous people in the Old Testament. Joseph had quite some family drama, as we talked about last time. Drama that he definitely played a part in creating. He was his dad's favorite child, and thus he was given special treatment compared to his brothers. And on top of that, he was having these dreams of his brothers and even his parents bowing down to him out of respect and honor. And because Joseph seemed to have had a hard time picking up on social cues, he shared his dreams with his whole family. Didn't go over well, right? I mean, you can imagine, his brothers were not okay with him being dad's favorite. His brothers were not okay with him sharing his dreams of ruling over them one day as if he was going to be their king or leader. So how did they respond? All right, check this out. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Dang, that just went from like 0 to 100 so fast, right? It continues. Hey, here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. Now, despite his anger toward Joseph, one of his brothers actually had a conscience in the moment. It says that when Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Now, Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. Whew. And thank goodness for Reuben. He convinced his brothers to throw Joseph into a well instead of going homicidal on him. He even planned on coming back to rescue Joseph later. It says that the brothers listened to Reuben, and when Joseph approached, they ripped off the special coat his father had given him, and they threw him in a well. Now, if Joseph had a phone, this is when he would have probably texted his best friend, when your brothers tear up your jacket and throw you in a well. But they're still not done with him. Check it out. They notice a caravan of traders approaching. Judah, another one of Joseph's many brothers, suggests they sell Joseph to these traders. After all, selling Joseph to a group of people who would most likely make him a slave is much better than murdering him, right? So, that's exactly what they do. And they dip Joseph's coat in the blood of a wild animal, take it to their father, and tell him that Joseph was likely attacked and killed by an animal, right? Beautiful cover story. It says they took the ornate robe back to their father and said, hey, we have found this. Examine it to see whether or not it is your son's robe. The last line tells us everything that we need to know about the situation. The brothers obviously knew that the coat belonged to Joseph. They brought it up to let their dad know that they had noticed the way that he had favored Joseph. They were mad about it. They didn't call it Joseph's robe or our brother's robe. They said, your son's robe. What a bunch of jealous jerks, right? Enter text number 2. Good news, out of the well. Bad news, they sold me, like actual sold. Now, I'm being a bit lighthearted, right? But there was nothing lighthearted about this situation. We simply can't imagine the fear, despair, uncertainty, and anger and hurt that Joseph felt. Betrayed by his own flesh and blood, sold into very real slavery by the brothers that he grew up with. The message being sent was loud and clear. Hey, we're all better off without you. I mean, what would you even do? How do you get yourself unsold? There's clearly a what to do when you don't know what to do moment happening here. And our stories are different than Joseph's, but we'll all experience pain of some kind. We'll all have these scary, painful, or dangerous moments catch us off guard. We'll all have moments when life doesn't make sense and we don't have the words to process what is happening. Now, unfortunately for Joseph, he had more shocking moments in his future. We'll look at some of those in the next couple of weeks, but I want to highlight 5 powerful words that show up in this historical account of his life. While they didn't keep him from getting thrown into a pit, they didn't keep him from getting sold, these 5 words literally made all the difference and helped Joseph maybe more than anything else. You ready? Genesis 39:2 says, the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. Joseph didn't have a lot going for him in the pit, and even less afterward. But when Joseph was in despair and wondering how life would turn out, he could rely on a single truth. God was with him. This truth didn't change the reality of Joseph's situation, but it was better than being alone. This truth didn't mean that Joseph could see where the story was going, but he could ultimately know that he wasn't entirely dependent on himself to get out of the situation. The truth didn't mean that Joseph could easily deal with the things that happened to him. It didn't mean that he had a reason or an explanation for all of the pain that he was experiencing in his life. He didn't have to figure out things all by himself. And the same is true for you. When there's nothing that you can do, God is with you. Let me say that again. When there's nothing that you can do, God is with you. When life hands you shocking news and you don't know what to do with it, God is with you. Truthfully, we hear that all the time, right? So often that the words sometimes lose their meaning. We don't feel them. But think about it for a second. God is with you. Not in some abstract way, but He's literally present, near you, next to you when you feel alone. When you and I can truly understand and embrace this truth, it changes things. Our circumstances may not change. After all, Joseph wasn't immediately returned to his family, but it does change our perspective on the situation. And maybe more than anything, it gives us hope that we can keep going even when it feels like we can't. Knowing that God is with us may not change our circumstances. In fact, they probably won't. But it might just change us. It might give us enough hope to keep going, even in the midst of our hopeless circumstances. Now, it's easy to give in to the hurt that we've experienced. It's easy to let fear overwhelm us or anger consume us. We have a lot of reasons to let difficult and sometimes unfair situations get the last word. But when we know that God is with us, the uncertainty of life doesn't get the last word. God does. But what does that look like for us? There's really not any formulas or any easy answers for getting through hard times, but there are some things to do in the meantime. One is this: just be real. Feel your feelings. Not everyone will experience incredible luck in life, but everyone will go through tough times and pain, guaranteed. All throughout the Bible, people went through difficulties, and there were many accounts of them being real and honest with God about their struggles. There are no cliches to make the hard times go away, and our job isn't just to suck it up and act like everything's okay. If we believe that God is with us, then we should know that God is more than okay with our honest questions, our doubts, and our fears. More on that, see the Psalms. The second thing is this: remind yourself and each other that God is with you. Here's a spoiler alert, okay? Things did eventually work out for Joseph, but we know that because we can read the whole story in the Bible. But when Joseph was in it, he didn't know how it would turn out. There were no spoiler alerts for him. All he could do is face another day wondering how things are going to turn out. But he did hold on to one thing: that God was with him. In moments when life is toughest, that's when this reminder is most important. God is with you, and your story isn't over. Our life is going to be full of moments when we don't know what to do about our pain. And that is why small groups and church and Christian community are such an important thing. We'll want to insert a shocked face emoji a lot of times, and in those moments, nobody wants to be alone. And it's important to know that when you don't know what to do, God is with you, and so are we. So is your small group and your church. And we may not be able to be with you physically, but we can be with you in heart and spirit and over FaceTime. They will give you hope when things feel hopeless. It won't make difficult circumstances go away, but you will have something to count on. You will know that you are not